Speaking of family, Patricia, what happened to your baby?
Umwana wanje nakumutubanaho ngajya ku muhanda ariko nasekaga mukingiranye.
My baby, I used to leave him at home when I was doing the prostitution, but now we live together until I came.
A lot of these women who work on the streets have children. That's a very common thing.
Obviously,
and
yes.
probably why a lot of them are on the streets, to feed their children. How do you deal with these women, not only get them off the streets, but restore these families?
Well, we try to teach them to be better mothers because they don't always have the skills. I mean, they were robbed of a childhood themselves, you know, and they were little kids running around trying to hide in the genocide kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's all these, like, there's not a dull day, put it that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, we just do what we can, and we pray for, you know, for God to guide us and lead us. And we also have a lot of people down there that help us, like the local pastor, and we also have a social worker that worked with us as well. Different people there, so it's done in their way as well.
Mm-hmm. Patricia, it's not just getting off the streets, it's actually something happens in your heart, doesn't it? You know, how did you connect to Jesus?
Jewe aho nabaga ndi narasengaga nubwo najyaga ku muhanda nari nzi Imana ariko nasengaga ariko nubwo nasengaga ntago nari nzi Imana cyane numvaga Imana itankunda kuko
Even though I went in prostitution, I kind of prayed in my heart that God deliver me, and all over that time I was praying.
So you had faith at that point.
nari mfite kwiseranganya nsaba Imana ni Imana uzame umuntu wanyikura hano ku muhanda ngiye ngabiwe ngamukorera ajya gasenga.
At that time I was praying God that if I had somebody to take me out of the street and probably work for that person or do something, but just get off there.
Well, and that's where, Chantal, you come into the picture, and you were an answer to that prayer. You've not just been an answer to prayer for Patricia, but for other women in Rwanda. And I think we have some pictures right now that show a little bit about what you have been up to in the last while.
Yeah, this is the group, well, not all of them are there, but most of them. The choir at church, they formed a choir and they would sing at church with the little gestures.
And these are all women who were formerly on the streets.
Except for the teacher at the end there, he's not a woman.
Yeah. Oh.
These are two of the kids that we had at our home.
Wow. And they're getting an education?
Yeah, we kept them in school, yes, of course.
And this is something truly remarkable here.
Yes, this is a whole new level.
Of your ministry?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us what's happening here.
When in Rwanda, doing my own little thing as God had showed me to do, I went to a little church across the street and all of a sudden noticed that not only missionaries from Canada were there, but they were native. They were from northern Manitoba, and I've always had a heart for the native people, and being in Cornwall surrounded by 3 reserves, I've actually never met one.
Wow.
And here in Rwanda, doing my own little thing, they're there. And towards the end of what they did, which was like a little Christian power, was amazing, I loved it. The Rwandan pastor had me go up and just share. They do that as a form of politeness. But I didn't feel like I was supposed to share like what I was doing there. I did in a sentence. But what I did is I truly explained the history of Canada, how the native people, the white people stole their land and assimilated them and all that, because they didn't speak about that to the Rwandans, and I felt they really needed to know. And in doing that, I started apologizing to them in the name of what my people did to their people, and I was weeping and they were weeping, and I just prayed restoration to their culture and to their, you know, the whole thing that was assimilated back then. And there was this reconciliation that happened right there in Rwanda.
In a church in Rwanda.
Canadians, just right there. And but what happened, the Rwandan pastor took it back home afterwards and said, as the white and the native forgive each other and are one on one land, so the Hutus and the Tutsis need to forgive each other and be one as one
and
on one land.
And these were the 2 main tribes of
Exactly.
Rwanda. Patricia, that's where you come in. Your message has been one of reconciliation. Tell me how you, or why you're here in Canada.
I didn't know what to forgive was before.
Ariko njewe aho Imana yakoresheje Chantal.
But since God used Chantal,
jewe natangiye kwiga nkajya niga Bibiliya bakamugura nangira kumenya Imana.
I started to know God. I started to read the Bible and know God.
Kubabarira nicyo kintu cya mbere.
And then I understood forgiveness.
Jewe abantu bishe famille narababariye.
I forgave those people who killed my family.
Kuko nanjye narababariwe.
Because I was forgiven myself.
Kuko Yesu yemeye kudupfira ku musaraba, Yesu adupfira ku musaraba kuko yadupfiriye twese kugira ngo turokoke.
Because when Jesus died for us, he saved us all so that we have a salvation.
Nje ngwire kubabarira abagenzi n'undi akure kubabarira abagenzi banje uko utababariye nawe no kuzababaritwa.
I understood that you have to forgive your brothers and sisters and neighbors, because if you don't forgive, then you won't be forgiven as well.
Kubabarira nicyo kintu cya mbere.
So forgiveness was my first priority in this ministry.
Ushobora kuvuga ati se nababarira umuntu gute yarangiriye nabi.
You just may wonder how you can forgive somebody.
Ubanza kwiheraho ukareba ubuzima bwawe cyangwa ukuntu Yesu yabambwe ku musaraba.
I started just looking at myself and also looking at Jesus, how Jesus was crucified.
Yesu yataza kutubambirwa nta muntu umwe wikiriwe.
If Jesus wasn't crucified, we weren't going to be saved.
Tugomba kubabarira abagenzi bacu.
We have to forgive.
Yeah. You are speaking that message here in Canada at a pivotal moment in our history, Chantal. Not only did you have that reconciliation in that church from Rwanda, but that has now broadened to this nation. And you have brought Patricia over to speak to churches and to peoples, our First Nations. You've been invited. Just quickly, tell me what the mission there is.
Well, the people that we met from Manitoba in Rwanda twice, 7 months apart, just by surprise, have invited Patricia to come with them on a tour, and myself on a tour, because they were basically challenging the native people to help the Rwandan orphan children. And because Patricia is an orphan that had never been helped until now, it kind of shows and challenges the people to do even more now to save them from that kind of heartache. Right. So basically we will be going to Manitoba. We don't have a date set, but we'll be going to different communities, and wherever else they invite us, we are all good for that. I know God has a purpose for that, and that is the reason why she's here, although there's a lot of other things we're doing as well. But that definitely is one, and that decision actually of having her come in that specific purpose was actually decided on the 10th of June, the day before the Prime Minister actually apologized on the Hill. So it was just intertwined. It was just basically, you know, God knits, and he knitted it all together in a nice, beautiful quilt. And the quilt is not finished. We're just on the first square here, you know. So it's just really coming together.
And the idea that these people groups are working together,
yes,
unlikely
yes.
people groups working together. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have both of you here sharing your story. And if you would like to know more about Rose of Dignity, or even have Patricia come speak at your church and share her living story of reconciliation, restoration, and dignity, you can log on to our website, crossroads.ca, and there will be a link for Rose of Dignity and the contact information.